Living Conversation. We are glad you made time to join us to discuss an important topic today. So the Purposeful Living Conversation is an initiative of the Friends of Purpose in Christ Network that seeks to improve the spiritual health, mental, physical well-being of individuals in our generation. Before we begin today's conversation, let us have a word of prayer. Father, in the name of Jesus, we thank you for the opportunity you have given to us to be here today. We thank you for the strength that you, Almighty God, you have given to us to live the life you have given us. Father, we thank you for the spirit of understanding, the spirit of wisdom. We pray for the flow of the Holy Spirit, that even as we are about to discuss a very important topic today, we'll be led by your spirit. Also help all those that are connected today so that by the time they are leaving, they are going to have some kind of knowledge they're going to leverage to build their finances. We thank you for today in Jesus' name. Amen.
Amen.
So in today's conversation, we are going to look at a very important topic, and it builds on our previous conversation we had, which is personal financial management. So in the part two, today we are going to have the part two of that conversation, which we are going to talk about how to be financially independent. And we do have an important guest today to walk us through ways that we can be financially independent. As we go through life, we need to be able to stand strong, even in terms of our finances. When we read the book of 1 Timothy chapter 5, verse 8, it says, but if any provide not for his own, and especially for those of his own house, he has denied the faith and is worse than an infidel. So this is making us to understand the ability to stand independently in our finances is very important. We know that yes, once in a while, you do require some aid or support, but we can build our lives to the point where, like the Bible says, requiring no aid or support, you can be financially sound. So with me today to discuss this important topic is Mr. Daniel Nkrumah, ACCA. Welcome, Mr. Nkrumah, to today's conversation.
Thank you very much, Dr. Sarah, for inviting me.
So before we begin today's conversation, can you give us a little background about yourself?
Thank you very much, Mr. Daniel Nkrumah. I'm a qualified accountant with the Association of Chartered Certified Accountants. I'm also a certified financial modeler with the Financial Analyst Institute. And I've worked with the Big Four, Deloitte and Touche, where I advise clients on financial management. So I'm very much happy to be invited to talk on this subject, looking at my experience with finance, both corporate finance and personal finance. And today our focus will be on personal finance. And I think I'm so much excited and ready to answer all your questions. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Mr. Nkrumah, for making time to join us today. And one thing I want us to begin with for today's conversation is, can you give us a brief highlight of what it means for someone to be financially independent?
So to be financially independent is to be able to meet your basic needs. Okay, so we have needs and wants. Needs are the things you cannot do without, and wants are the things you can do without, but based on your preference, based on your interests. For instance, if you don't have a phone is a need. The type of phone you want, or the type of phone you want to use, will be a want. So your basic need is a phone, but to buy an iPhone is not a need, but a want. So to be financially independent is to be able to meet all your basic needs and then to even meet your wants. So at least your basic needs should be met, and you should be able to rely on yourself to make provision for all the things you need. So that is the basic definition for financial independence.
Okay, thank you very much, Mr. Nkrumah. So thank you very much, Mr. Nkrumah. So what you're basically telling us is financial independence implies the ability to meet your basic needs in life, requiring no aid or support.
Yes, please.
Okay, so we have an important question for you today. We want you to highlight on some myths of financial freedom. When we talk about financial freedom, we know that there are so many things. We believe when it comes to finances, there are different schools of thought, right? There are different schools of thought. People have their perspective about what financial freedom actually means. So can you walk us through some myths of financial freedom briefly?
Thank you so much. So in this part of the world, I don't know, Dr. Sarah is in US, but I'm in Ghana at the moment. So in this part of the world, I mean in Ghana, which may apply to other parts of the world, like most African countries, there is a myth that some people are born to be rich. Okay, so in our local language, we have ACCA 4. In my community, there was a big house close to my house that we all knew that the people from that house are ACCA 4. That means that they are going to be rich, and that thing, it made me took some time to think about it. Why are they called rich? Sometimes we will just go to farm and bring the best from our farm, like plantain or cassava, and we go to the ACCA 4 house and sell it to them. So one myth is that some people are born into affluence, and no matter what they do, they will be rich. And there is this popular saying that the rich will continue to be rich and the poor will continue to be poor. That is a myth. The poor will not continue to be poor if the poor is able to apply the principles of financial freedom. The rich will not continue to be rich if the rich deviates from the principles of financial freedom. So this is a very big myth, to think that there are people who are born to be rich. Another myth about finance is that the more spiritual you are, the more financially independent you may be. So some people, take finances at the extreme of religiosity or religious perception about money. But you realize that money is based on principles. Making money or using money is based on some standard universal principles. That is why unbelievers are making it. Elon Musk is not a believer. Today, as part of one of the work or the projects I'm working on, I was reviewing big companies in the world, top 20 companies in the world. Apple is number 1, Microsoft is number 2. Microsoft is number 2. The highest shareholder of Microsoft, that is the Bill Gates, as we know, is not a believer. Apple is there. Tesla is on the list. Tesla is for who? It's for this guy, Elon Musk. He's not a believer. So you realize that unbelievers are making it because some of them really appreciate the principles of financial freedom, irrespective of your faith. Recently in my company, they brought in a young guy to be the CEO. This young guy is not a Christian, he's not born again, he's a Hindu. You realize that this is an unbeliever, but he has the skills to really lead the company and he can make more money. So I just want to share two myths of financial freedom. The first myth is to think that there are people who are born to be rich. There are people who are born into affluence, so they will be rich. And the second myth is to think that financial freedom should be linked solely to spiritualism or religiosity or Christianity. Financial freedom should not always be solely connected to religion. So those are the two myths I want to highlight. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Mr. Nkrumah, for sharing these wonderful insights with us. And based on what you said, you are basically pointing towards applying the right principles in life. God created this world, he gave this world to us, and there are some principles that, irrespective of your socioeconomic status, in terms of your parents, how well they are doing financially, or irrespective of your belief, if you do apply these principles, they will yield results for you. So
Yes.
when you're advising the people that are connected, everyone today is look out for the right principles, learn, seek out. Knowledge is important to obtain knowledge, and that is one of the reasons why we are having this conversation today, to disseminate information that will help us in building our finances and help us to escape every poverty route. So next question for you, Mr. Daniel Nkrumah, is what are the key elements of personal financial management?
All right, thank you very much for this question. So the key elements of personal financial elements, I will break it into five elements. If you are able to master these 5 elements, then I believe that you'll be on top of your personal finance. You'll be on top to be able to even help other people to be able to achieve financial freedom. So the first one is income. So just 5 things. Maybe based on some the questions I received, I can go into details. But understand income, understand expenses, understand savings, understand investments, and then understand protection of your finances. So income, expenses, savings, investment, and protection. Okay, so with income, our focus is to increase your income. You look at ways to increase your income. For expenses, the focus is to reduce or decrease your expenses. For savings, the focus is to increase it in line with available opportunities for investments. If there are opportunities for investments, the choice will be for more investment than savings. We'll explain the savings, later. So income, we increase it, expenses, we decrease it, savings, we increase it, investment, you increase it, and then you also increase protection. So these are the 5 elements of financial management or financial freedom. So you want me to elaborate on each of them?
Yes, we would really appreciate you if you could do that for us. Thank you.
Right. So for income, as we know, income, talks about the inflow of money into your pocket in most part of the world. I mean, in most, because in most countries in the world, like countries in Africa, countries in emerging market like Asia, Pacific, and some Asian countries, and even Southern America, most people are not exposed to income as the inflow of our finances. Most people are only exposed to only one source of income. For instance, you realize that many people tend to do the work of their parents or try to do similar things in the future. Some of them are limited to career, some of them are limited to job, some of them are limited to trade, a specific trade, and that is all. But then we need to understand that the bottom line of financial management is the inflow, or what comes into your coffers. So for income, I've broken down income into 2. You can make income by 2 things: sale of goods and provision of services. Sale of goods and provision of any other thing is not sustainable. I know some people are here who may be very religious. They went to sow a seed and somebody, called them and give them money. That is not sustainable. You cannot teach your children how to make somebody give them money. You get it? But then if you can teach yourself and teach your people how to sell a product and how to sell a service, or how to provide a service, these are the basic needs of generating income. All the people in the Bible who made it, all the people who used the blessings of God, like Solomon. Solomon had 7 sources of income. Maybe because of the time, we may not go into that. 7 solid sources of income. But what do we know about Solomon? God appeared to him in the night, and God asked him that, what do you want? and he said he wanted wisdom, and God said he would bless him, and he blessed him. But that did not end there. His sources of income were really tangible. He combined the provision of service. Do you know that there was a time Solomon was making money from advising, some of the people, those who were not Israelites. They were coming to him for advice, for him to adjudicate their problems or their cases, and they were giving him, money. That was provision of services. Solomon also made chariots, and he made gold. He made cups. The gold cups, the gold that he was receiving, he turned them into finished product, and he was selling. He was selling golden chariots to the kings and the priests around his kingdom. He taxed the non-Israelites, and he also taxed his own people. There were so many sources of income to this king. So just to be sure that you understand the income, there are two sources of income: sale of goods and provision of services. For the sale of goods, these are practical things. This is not textbook. He just wants you to understand how we make income. We have direct and indirect. Direct is to have your personal products. You can buy the product from the market and you can sell. Okay, so that is direct. If you sell anything and people can buy, you automatically have income. You automatically generate money or generate income. So direct products, things you can directly sell. Then you can also have an indirect product. An indirect product is you can be an agent. Okay, so you negotiate, you link a buyer and a seller, and that's what Alibaba did, and he's still doing. Alibaba Group is an indirect seller. They don't have the product, but they are able to connect people who want the product. So in the same vein, you can also do that. Okay, and some of these things, by the grace of God, when I got understanding of these things, I can sell anything. If you want to sell anything, if you want to buy anything, I can get you some. Not because I have the inventory in my house, but how to get it is very simple. Okay, so you can sell a product directly, or you can sell a product indirectly. Then we have provision of services. And under the provision of services, we have job or your career. In most cases, your career is a provision of service. So you need to ensure that your career is giving you income. Okay, your service is in demand, so that by your service being in demand, you'll be able to generate income. Please, are we connected?
Yes, thank you very much for sharing.
This is on the income. So if you have more questions, you can ask the questions, then I continue with the other ones.
So I think you mentioned about the provision of services, which the major channel through which you can provide services is possibly being employed by somebody. And I want you to talk a little bit, and I think that kind of like connect with even investment. I want you to talk a little bit about how not to rely solely on your salary as a source of income, right?
Okay.
That sometimes.
I got you. Sorry, please continue.
So how sometimes there might be the tendency for you to maybe, especially if your salary is the kind of like, okay, where this salary can sustain me like for the month till there's another inflow again. So can you talk a little bit about ways that we can choose not to rely only on our salary? And can you also talk about connect it in terms of sometimes people are employees, you go to work from Monday to Friday, possibly from 8 o'clock, and maybe you reach home like 8 o'clock, you go to work 8 o'clock a.m. and you get to the house maybe like 8 o'clock p.m., right? And that is like a very good excuse not to start any business, because I don't have time, right? I'm employed by somebody. I don't have the time to start my own business or something. So I wanted to talk a little bit about even how you can manage even the time you have as an employee to be able to get some time on your own to even start your own business. And sometimes so I do believe that it is not just you starting, you can even invest in somebody to start, and there can be the flow of income like coming to you. So I wanted to talk a little bit about that.
Sure, thank you very much. All right. So, it appears many people are so fascinated with their career, their job title, sometimes the company they work for, and they don't care about how much they receive until it gets to a time that they start complaining. Maybe they want to get married and then they realize that their savings may not even be able to marry the woman of their hearts. And when they get married, sometimes they are unable to take very good care of their children. Then they begin to complain, So for me, I want to say that in order not to rely on your career or one source of income, you should first understand that there are various sources of income. And, income is just in quotes like a game. It follows principles, it follows rules. And the more we apply the principles, the more we have the income. I read about Tesla today, and their vision is to replace, they produce electric cars, and you realize that they can replace the fuel engine, then it means that they are even protecting the environment, and it's one of their strategic vision. So personally, the brand of a company is good sometimes to a certain point of your career, and afterwards it's about what you can do. So it's not so much about the name of the company. So I want our listeners to really see career to be a means of generating income. Okay, if there are courses you need to take to be more valuable, take those courses as if you are investing in yourself. And once you invest in yourself, you are valuable. Your skill should be able to generate more income. Then to be able to have other sources of income, what I think is that you need to invest or put your investment in areas that may not require your time or much of your time as a professional. So invest in businesses or opportunities that can increase your income, okay, but will not take much of your time. So any money you have is not just about how much it's not about yourself, it's not just about having a bonus, okay, at the end of the year, then you just change your car. You have a car, but just because you don't know how to use the money to generate additional income, you buy another personal car. That may not really help you to generate additional source of income. I remember in 2015, when we graduated, one of my friends, he got a job. He got a job before me, and they were paying him very well. After some time, he bought this Kia Picanto vehicles, and he was giving it out. He gave it out for Uber, okay, and he was generating additional income. So for me, I learned a lot from him. At a point, he was seen to be, one of the richest among us, among our friends, even though he was not the richest when we were in school. But another example, one of my friends, 2 years after school, he got married, but he didn't have a job. This is a very good example. He didn't have a job, he got married. Then 2 years later, he called me that he had 2 children already. But this guy was never dependent on us. I was working in a big company, but to some extent, he was richer than me. Why was he richer than me at that time? Of course, I don't know his status now, so I can't say I'm richer than him. But at that time, I knew his status, I knew my status, so I can say he was richer than me. So he, somehow, he got some side jobs when he was in school. He did some savings, and right after school, the money could buy a car, a Kia Picanto car. he could drive. He didn't have an official job, even though we both graduated from the same university. Then he was driving. Then in the driving, I told you that he got married 2 years after school. So within the 2 years, he bought another car. And this time he bought a bigger one, what we call the trotro in Ghana. So trotro makes more money than the smaller car. So at that time in 2016, the trotro was giving him 150 cedis a day, which in a month, 150 times, 30 days, about 4,500. After paying some expenses, he was making an average of 3,000 cedis in 2016, which was equivalent to $500, because the exchange rate was about 5 cedis or 6 cedis, okay, from one vehicle. And the other vehicle, he was making about 2,000 cedis. So on average, he was making 5,000 cedis. At that time, my salary was 2,000 cedis. I was working with a big auditing firm in Accra. But I realized that he hadn't received any paycheck from anybody, but he was just applying. He was providing services, and by providing the services, he was making more money than myself at that time, and was able to even marry the love of his heart. So what I want to say is that if the activity can give you genuine income or can generate income without having any legal issue, I think that our focus should be on how to generate the money, or the activity that can give us extra income. Okay, so once we do that, our career will not be enough for us. And we shouldn't also be in unemployment and be using part of the time to do other things. I see we are not concentrating on the work we are employed to do just because we want to do some side gigs. Remember, I said if you are a professional and you are not a full-time entrepreneur, then you should invest in areas that will not require your time. The first example I gave, my friend who was employed in a professional environment, he was working and he bought a small car for somebody to drive. So the driving of the vehicle did not require his time. He was focusing on his work. In fact, after some time, he was even promoted to be, a senior person in his company. And then it didn't require his time. Then shortly afterwards, he started a cold store business that he had somebody in charge, and it was also doing very well for him. Okay, and I remember in 2016, he had about 10 employees in the cold store business. Okay, so this person was not in charge of the cold store, but every week you have meetings and see how the business was going every weekend. So it was as if his focus was to invest in one business, from one business to the another. Last year, this same person called me that he has found this cement construction opportunity. He was able to buy from the factory directly at a factory price and sell to people outside. Just last month, he told me that. So it's not something that should require your time. But once you generate the income and you see your money as a seed, this is the meaning of a seed. As some people have some understanding of a seed. Money is a seed. And once you make and you invest, sometimes you make some losses, or you put together the losses and the gains from various sources. It is better than keeping the money without putting it into any other investments.
Thank you very much, Mr. Nkrumah, for sharing these wonderful insights with us. And when you were talking, one thing that came into my mind is that even if you do not have the ideas, sometimes getting the ideas, there are some that do have the capital, but they do not have the ideas. There are some that also have the ideas and they do not have the capital. So even if you think you do not have the ideas and you do have the capital, you can invest in somebody who has the idea, so that at the end of the day, when the profits come, it belongs to the two of you. So thank you very much for sharing this with us. And one thing I wanted to talk a little bit about, when you were saying all of these in terms of salary and relying solely on your salary throughout your career, I wanted to talk a little bit about what are some of the places I can invest, so that even though I'm working, and I'm nearing towards retirement, I know we might be young, but then definitely one thing people don't really think about when they are young is retirement. And before you realize, you find yourself maybe at the age of 60 and you are retiring, and you don't want to depend only on your social security income, right? Sometimes that income might not even be enough, especially when maybe the span of your lifetime, you give birth late and your children are still in school, and now you're going to use part of the social security income to look after your kids. So I want you to talk a little bit about investment towards retirement.
All right, thank you very much for this important question. Investment. So first, I want to draw the line between savings and investments. Some people think savings is the same as investments. Okay, so savings is not to increase your wealth, but investment is to increase your wealth. So if you have 2 cedis, the purpose of savings is to protect the value of the 2 cedis. So when you put the money with a bank, like T-bills, fixed deposits, these are savings, they are not investments. Because what the T-bill interest is giving you 30, 90 days, especially if you are in places like some developing countries. By the time the 90 days has elapsed, what the interest is just going to pay for inflation, or is going to pay for increase in prices of products and services. So don't think savings is an investment. If you have money at a bank, it is not an investment. It is to help you to get something little to cushion or protect the value of the money. So that is savings. And if you want to save, you can save your money in fixed deposits, where the bank will give you a fixed interest rate, and the interest rate will materialize at the end of an agreed period. Or you can invest, or you can save in treasury bills, which is also known as T-bills. We have 91 days, 182, 182 and 364 or 365 T-bills at different rates. So you can just go to any bank, and that is also safe because the banks buy the T-bills on behalf of the government. And thanks be to God that in Ghana, the haircuts is not affecting T-bills. So it's a way of saving or protecting the value of your income. Don't leave your money with a bank. Sometimes when friends call me at certain points of the month, and I tell them that, oh, I don't have anything in my account, it sounds weird to some of them. In most cases, I don't have any balance in my current account, especially the bank account. The money might be in my Momo account for my known expenses, and we have a buffer for unexpected expenses. When we get to expenses, I can throw more light on how the expenses also work. But then money with a bank, you have 50,000 in your bank account. The bank is just benefiting from the money. It should go out and bring more. Okay, so that is what I will say about savings. So let me come to investments and highlight on ways of getting your money invested, or investing your money and also focusing on your career. Because you want to focus on your career, you want to spend more hours, but then to get to a time that your investment return every month may be higher than your salary. Companies are not increasing salaries often. Sometimes they increase it lower than the inflation or the inflation rates. You realize that, but if you have an investment, your investment will increase at least in line with the inflation. Okay, so I've put together some sources of investment. I've categorized them into two. Okay, we have the assets, the income generating assets. Okay, you invest in income generating assets, and then you can also invest in assets, in asset appreciating products. Okay, value appreciating assets or asset appreciating products. So if you take the income generating assets, they are assets that can generate additional income, and your original investments may be there. Okay, for instance, I give example of my friend buying a vehicle and getting income. Okay, so the vehicle was an income generating asset. There was a time I also joined him, and by the grace of God, I benefited from it. So some years after school, some of my friends were buying their personal cars, and I'm not saying personal car is not good, it's very good depending on your financial plan. Okay, financial plan. So if you want to plan your finances in a way that you want an income generating asset before the personal vehicle, that is also one of the ways to achieve your financial freedom. So examples of income generating assets I mentioned is the vehicle for commercial purpose, or you may have a shop for somebody to be in charge. If you put in place proper measures, you'll be able to generate income from the shop. I have a friend who works with an oil company in Ghana. He's in Ghana, he's paid in dollars, but he has a shop. He has a shop at Medina. I've been at the shop before. You see how people are buying from the shop. He sells, rubber, and that he's also making additional income from the shop. The day he was going to take the shop, he called me. He paid about 100,000 Ghana cedis, which is about $10,000. It was about $10,000 at that time to secure the shop. Then he put in the product. Every month he was able to sell about 20,000 products. Okay, so this shop, he paid so much for it, but he's making extra income from the shop. By now, I think his profits may be able to cover the cost of getting the shop. The 100,000 was for 5 years. It was a lease for 5 years. So it's a typical example of an income generating assets. Okay, you may even buy a property and rent it. I also have a friend, the same Medina Market in Accra. He rented a shop for 1,800. So he also paid for 5 years. Then he re-rented it to someone. The last rent was just last year. I was privy to the transaction. We rented it to somebody for 2,400. And just this week, when I was chatting with him, the rental this year is 3,000 a month. So you realize that he rented the property for 1,800. Today, the value is 3,000 cedis, and he is renting the property to somebody. So that is an income generating asset he has invested in. If you are in a developed country, like where Dr. Sarah is in US or in any advanced country, you can also invest in shares or stocks. And investing in stocks, that we can have another time, I can take you through stock investments in details. Depending on your risk profile, we have people who are risk averse. The risk averse, they don't want to take risk so much. So you can invest in notable companies, top companies that are really known. Their information is on Yahoo Finance. If you go to Yahoo Finance, you can find information on top companies, their profits, their revenue, everything is there. So you study companies and invest in those companies. The income generating aspect of investing in stock is the dividend. So some of them, every 3 months, they pay dividend. Even in Ghana, MTN shares are floated. You can buy shares from some companies or listed companies in Ghana. Stanchart is listed. You can buy shares in the bank, and some other banks are also listed in Ghana. You can buy shares from the Ghana Stock Exchange. If you're in Ghana, if you're in Nigeria, you can buy shares, and there will be periodic payments of dividend. You'll be there and you receive an alert that a dividend has been paid. Another way of also benefiting from the share is the increase in the value of the share. We call it capital gains. So you buy a stock price for, let's say, $2 per share. After some time, you see that the share may be sold for $2.5. If you sell the shares for $2.5 per share, it means that you are gaining by 0.5 dollars per share. Sometimes I visit some of these websites to see the performance of companies, and you realize that if you understand the stock market, there are certain industries that do well at certain times of the year, and some industries suffer the same time. So you know how to combine stocks. If you have $100, you can buy, let's say, $80 of Microsoft, and then you buy $20 of Shell. Shell is everybody knows Shell, the oil company. The headquarters is in UK. So you realize that they are in two different industries. So when the shares of Microsoft is declining, it could be that at the same time Shell is also increasing, or Shell is increasing. Then by combining the stocks, you'll be able to increase your income irrespective of where you are. So these are just examples of income generating assets. Just bear in mind that always remember the description I've given to these categories of investment: income generating assets. Then the final group of assets you can invest in are what we call asset appreciating commodities, or items that appreciate in terms of their value. Stocks or shares is one. It's not only the advanced countries, even in Ghana, MTN share is growing. I'm not advertising for them, but then if you go to the Ghana Stock Exchange, you can also see some companies that are doing well. You can buy their shares, and then by the end of the year, there was a time Stanchart was one of the highest on the Ghana Stock Exchange. So that is one. Then we also have property like building or land. So you can also invest in land in Ghana, and the value will go up. But instead of seeing 100,000 cedis in my account, I can buy land and just leave it. Okay, and with time, you have experience in specific industries. Okay, the more you invest in some of these things, after some time, you may have experience in transport, you may have experience in real estate, and you'll be there, and landowners will call you, people will call you, and you can generate more income. You can also invest in currency, foreign currency. If you buy dollars, for instance, in a period where the local currency is depreciating, you can also invest in foreign currency. Someone gave me $500 in 2021, getting to the end of 2021, for me to keep for her. And recently she was calling me for it. That means that I'm going to pay more than she gave me. Of course, I changed the money. I couldn't keep the money. I changed it and use it for something profitable. So you can realize that that money, she bought the $500 at 3,000 cedis. Okay, but today it's about 5,500 cedis. So within some few months, not less than 1.5 years, she is getting almost 100% of the 3,000 cedis she invested in the dollars. Then finally, you can invest in commodities depending on where you are. In my place, like Chifupraso, where I stayed for some time, I know some people buy products from farmers. I mean, investing in commodity, you buy cocoa seed from farmers. Because cocoa is seasonal, some farmers may be waiting for the let's say the authorized buyers to come and buy. If you are in such place, sometimes they can call you that they need money urgently for something. Then you buy it at a lower price, lower than the market price. Then you can sell it when the authorized buyers come. So you can invest in cocoa, you can invest in oil palm, in Chifupraso, for instance. I know people invest in the oil, in the palm fruits. Okay, they go to the farms or the farmers approach them. Personally, I've been approached before. A farmer will approach you that, oh, I have this product, palm oil, palm nuts, palm fruits. So you want to buy. You can buy and sell it to the Chifu Oil Palm Plantation or the company, and they'll buy it at a higher price. So I know somebody approached some time ago about cashew, because this person is in Sampa. Sampa is in DA. Okay, so depending on your environment, you can invest in commodity. But then if you are investing in commodity, then you should be sure you are not investing in perishable commodity. Look at the products I mentioned, cocoa, cashew, oil palm, and also be sure that you have a ready market, because you are not just buying those products. The purpose is to buy and resell. So you should have a market, and then you should be, if you want to also go into commodity, we can have another section on commodity. The Ghana Commodity Exchange, for instance, they publish the prices of certain commodities in certain areas every month. You can go to their website, and it will surprise you that there was a time I wanted to go into that. The price of maize in Tema is in that report. At the same time, they can give you the price of maize in Medina and the price of maize in Tema. And you realize that if you do the math, the difference is huge, or there is a significant difference sometimes. Okay, so if you are really, if you really want to go into commodity investment, you can arrange. I know someone who stopped his job and focused on commodity market. I used to work with him at Deloitte, and he started trading in maize, buying directly from the farmers and selling to restaurants and schools and other places. It got to a time that he had to quit. Okay, he quit Deloitte and went into full-time maize production. His company is called Nkrumah, and he's doing very well. The last time I saw one of his transactions, he was selling to big companies like Nestle, maize, and he's doing very well. So it depends on where you want to invest. If you want to invest in asset appreciating commodities, look at stocks, look at property like building lands. If you want to invest in forex, foreign currency, you buy the hard currency, you keep it, you study the trend, and you sell. You buy commodities like cocoa, oil palm, maize, or any other products. Thank you.
Thank you very much. And I just wanted to, because of our time, briefly talk a little bit about where can I go to get most of this information, because you talked about investment in assets and so many things. So after this conversation, suppose you've ignited someone that, okay, I want to invest in certain areas. Where do I go from here to get more information?
If you want to invest in stock, you read one of the areas, the sources I use is the Yahoo Finance. So I can, depending on the time, I could send a link to the platform for anybody. You click on it, you click on companies, or you type the name of the company. If it's listed, you see the performance of the company, so you can invest. And then we also have E-Trade that is still on the stock. So with E-Trade, you can read more about E-Trade. You can watch videos about it. Then through that platform, you can invest in stocks. Okay. Then if you want information about the commodity market, in Ghana, we have Ghana Commodity Exchange. It's an institution in charge of commodity prices and its availability. So you can also go to their website, read about the various commodities and even the commodities that are in high demand, depending on the season. They give highlights on them. They can even predict the demand of certain products. For instance, they can say that, looking at the situation in Ghana, by Christmas time, maize will be in demand and the price will go up. Maize you can store depending on the availability of your time, and then you invest in such things. But you've not asked any question on expenses. But when I started and I was talking about the various elements of personal financial management, I mentioned expenses. So if you can give me the permission, about 2 to 3 minutes, I'll quickly highlight on how we can manage our expenses as well.
Yes, you can go ahead. Thank you.
So in managing our expenses, I put expenses into two: our needs and our wants. So clearly define your needs and also define your wants. The needs are things you cannot do without, and your wants, the wants are the various options. Sometimes the wants are the various options of the needs. If I need a phone, I need a phone, but the type of phone is a want. I can use Samsung, I can use Techno, I can use whatever, I can use iPhone, but then the type of phone becomes our wants. So I want you to clearly define your wants and your needs. Then you also know your fixed expenses and your recurring expenses. Okay, your fixed expenses and your recurring expenses. Then you also want to talk about your planned expenses and imposed expenses. So the last time we had this conversation, we spoke a lot about budgeting, personal budgeting. It is something that most people do not do, especially in developing countries. But I think if you do your personal budgets, how much did you spend on credits last month? You don't know. It may look very little, but if every day you buy data for 3 cedis, every day you buy credit for 2 cedis, by the time you realize at the end of the month, you are spending like 500 cedis, 2,000 cedis on data, on credits. So if you have a track record of your expenses, all right, you can take measures to reduce some of the expenses you incurred in the previous month. So have a budget and plan your expenses accordingly. Then you also need to understand luxurious product and standard product. See, everything comes back to a financial plan. Okay, just to summarize it, have a financial plan. And with a financial plan, maybe you are a fresh graduate or you are a professional. With a financial plan, you want to get to a point that, okay, you don't have to limit yourself in the things you want and the things you want to acquire. So you don't spend everything today. Okay, you invest and you also plan how your expenses will go. So to conclude on the expenses, I want to go back on the expenses management quadrant. Expenses management quadrant. It may look theoretical, but practically useful. You can use this anytime. So I sometimes use this, and if you see that I can purchase certain things, but I have not purchased them, and you don't know me very well, you might not understand me. There are things I can, but if I look at the quadrants, they fall at a certain angle of the quadrant. A quadrant is a 4-chamber table, okay, like a square that you have divided into 4. Okay, so the first quadrant is your top left side. The top left side, I've put my need and urgent things. They are my needs and they are my urgents. Assuming 2 months from now, your rents will expire, you have to renew your lease agreements with your landlord. It is a need and it may be an urgent need. So it will be in the first quadrant. Okay, need and urgent. Okay, assuming last year, one of my friends, he was living in a 2-bedroom apartment. He was not married. He didn't even have a lady or a girlfriend or a fiancé. So he was just there and he called me that he needed a loan. And I said, why do you need a loan? And he said he had seen a nicer apartment in a nicer apartment in the same area. So he wanted to move from where he was. His apartment was nicer than mine. Where he was more spacious and better than even where I was living. But I was far above him in terms of, let's say, income generating. I was making more money than he was. But this is somebody who was living where he was, which was even better than mine, to a better place. Still not as if he was getting married. So we realized that what he was doing, he was moving to a new place. He didn't need it because his lease, his original lease had not expired, but he was moving to a new place. So it was a need and not, okay, it was a need and not urgent. It was a want and not urgent. So in my expenses management quadrant, I have need and urgent. Meet that expense as soon as possible. Then I have wants, not urgent. If it's a want and not urgent, like the example I gave, ignore it. Ignore it. Okay, there was a time that, for instance, I was in a single room and I'm a single man, and some of my friends who knew that I had enough to, get a better place, were making noise about it. After that, some time, I moved to a chamber and hall because it was in line with my financial plan. I knew what I was doing. I didn't have kids. And if I was to marry in a year's time, I could live in the chamber and hall until I get married and move on, because I know where that expense will fall in the expenses management quadrant. All right. Then we have need and not urgent. What if you have a need but not an urgent need? If you have a need and not an urgent need, postpone it. And I gave this to a friend who was to marry in 6 months' time. He was to marry in 6 months' time. He was living in a chamber and hall, but in his mind, when he got married, he wanted to get married and move to a 2-bedroom apartment. All right. So in 6 months' time, when I met him, he was discussing how he had found a new place he wanted to move to. Okay. But he didn't have enough money at that time. His old lease, or where he was, he had 6 months for the existing lease to expire. Okay. So he realized that he needed a bigger apartment for his marriage, right? But his marriage was in 6 months' time. So the bigger apartment was a need because of the marriage situation. But the timing did not make it an urgent need. So if a need is not urgent, the recommendation is you postpone it. So I told him to postpone, because he was taking money he was coming to borrow money. I said, no, you don't need to borrow money at this time. If you look at your salary in 4 months' time, you can accumulate, okay, money and move 2 months' time to your wedding or 1 month to your wedding. You can move. So instead of borrowing money, please don't. This is a need, but not an urgent need. So postpone it. So as a standard principle, if a need is not urgent, my recommendation is postpone it. Then we have a want that is urgent, an urgent want. If a want is urgent, sometimes when a want is urgent, it means that it is just for a short period of time, and afterwards you may not need it. Okay, so if a want is urgent, you rent, in quotes, you rent. For instance, if you are getting married and you don't have a personal car and you want to give it a special, because it's a special day, of course, so you don't want to sit in any car. Okay, the type of car is not a need. You need a car for your wedding, that is a need. But the type of car you use for the wedding is not a need, but it's a want. But because that want is urgent, if you want to sit in let's say a V8 for your wedding, it is a want. The type of car is a want, as I said. And because of the wedding, it's urgent. What you can't save money and buy a V8 for your wedding because it's just for 1 day. Okay, so you can rent it. Okay, so if there is anything, the want comes in when you have options and you want to choose a bigger option. Okay, so if you have options and it's urgent and it's possible to rent, you rent. So just to conclude on this quadrant, we have need and urgent. Meet that need as soon as possible. Then we have need and not urgent. Postpone it because it is not urgent. We have wants, which is urgent. Rent it or lease from someone and use it to meet your specific need within a specific time. Then finally, we have wants and not urgent. Ignore it. Okay, just ignore it because of your financial plan. Thank you.
Thank you very much. And I think you've given us so much insight today. And when you were talking, sometimes you kind of like giving examples, you mentioned marriage and finances, and that really caught my attention. And I know that sometimes when we talk about finances, the first thing that comes into our mind is men, right? Women, like kind of like sometimes it's basically like, okay, I'm gonna marry, so it's okay and everything. And sometimes as a woman, if you don't take care, you might end up thinking, like, for instance, that marriage is an escape route for poverty, right? So I want you to, there are a lot of wonderful ladies connected to our conversation today. And I want you to talk a little bit because I could see from the examples you were giving that most of these, when it comes to marriage, they were men, right? I wanted to talk to the women. I know that when we used to be in, when I was in graduate school, a friend of mine, when we had to, sometimes we had to rub shoulders with the men in the class and course work, so many things to do. And she sometimes would say that, so what are we even, why are we pushing too hard? We should have just married rich and just like kind of like escape going through all of this. So I wanted to talk to the wonderful ladies here to benefit from today's conversation. How do we avoid seeing marriage as an escape route for poverty? And as a woman, how can I manage my finances to be independent, even in marriage, not only out of marriage, but also in marriage?
All right, thank you very much for this. So I would say that women or ladies are special beings God created, and all these ideas, if they are implemented together with women, they become very successful. So gone were the days that people were thinking marriage, you just want to marry a rich person and you are okay. But you should also find a way to support, the man. And if you look at the various sources of investments I highlighted. If you look at the commodity markets, irrespective of your career and on a part-time basis or even during the weekends, you can pick some of these articles of the commodity markets, for instance, and just analyze and talk about it with your husband and advise your husband to invest in. One of my pastor's wife is a very good example for me. Recently, she called me that she had acquired a property close to University of Ghana and is going to build an apartment. So I was to be his financial advisor. And she told her husband, and the husband said, okay, if you can do it. This is a pastor's wife, but she has so many investments because I do advise her on her investment and approaches. So you realize that if you can also find a way to invest your income, okay, you'll be able to help your husband, not only your husband, but what I see some of their colleagues I have at work, the ladies, those who are married and have kids, it appears that when women give birth, their investments approaches are done in line with how they can support their children. So you can hear most women say that, oh, it's because of my children, oh, it's because of my children. So if you can also adopt that mentality, that you see, it's not just about providing for your children, but if a woman can make her own money, she has a way of impacting the children on how to make money. Okay, so if you are a child, if your children only saw their daddy giving you money, they can even grow to think that, men are money making machines. Of course, sorry for that word, but I think that women can also do something. And in fact, women should do something. But there's only one problem sometimes when women begin to compete with their husbands, in terms of how much they have. This woman I was talking about, she got the land close to Legon, but when I met her last week, she said that her husband has a hostel close to the land. So she doesn't want to use the land for a hostel. She wants to use the land for a normal apartment. And I asked her why. She doesn't want to be seen to be competing with her husband. It doesn't mean that is the general rule, but I want to say that it should be able to complement whatever your husband has, but not just because my husband is doing this, I also want to do that to show that I have enough money. We actually have a program we organize every Valentine's Day. We've been doing this for the past 3 years, how to be financially independent in marriage. So, as part of our purposeful living conversations, we can come back and discuss marriage finance, of which I see myself to be an expert. Marriage finance expert. So we can talk about it another time, how to plan for your children, how to, plan on their education and so many things we can discuss and see the role of women in achieving that. Thank you.
Thank you very much. And we had our time is almost up, but we had one question.
We can conclude and come back because of our time.
Okay, but we had a question, so we want to give the opportunity to those connected today to the person to ask the question. I saw the hand of Virtuous Lady Victoria. Please, can you go ahead and ask your question?
So we have 3 more minutes to end.
Yes, so you can just use just 1 minute to ask your question. If you still want to ask.
Okay, thank you. I want to know about the place of giving in all of this personal financial management. I didn't really hear about that, but if the question can be answered another time, it's fine with me.
Okay, so giving in the place of personal financial management. Okay, so giving is is very important, especially as far as our faith is concerned. And giving has a way of making opportunities abound to us, right? So especially when you give to support the work of God, yes, and also give to support. So giving to support the work of God is very good. Giving to the poor and the needy is also very good. But in all these things, when we give, there is an opportunity. Paul said, a great and effectual door is opened unto me. Okay, so when we give, there is an opportunity. There are times, personally, I do give, that I have opportunities. I get so busy that, but when you reduce the giving, it's also as a way of depending on your faith or your faith. Some people believe in, for instance, they believe in first fruits. So every January, they give their salary to churches and other things. But all the people who give, the blessing of giving is not spiritual. The blessing of giving is the opportunity God will give you. If you don't take advantage of the opportunity, you will not see the result of the giving. The blessing of giving is the opportunity God is giving you. So if you don't apply the principles we have discussed, giving will have no benefit to you. Assuming God has given you an opportunity, you have a new job, and then you do not apply the principles of managing your expenses, then all of a sudden you change your, for instance, I'm just laughing because I remember something. One of my friends, he called last year. He just wanted to change the interior part of his house, his room, a single brother, and he needed 20,000 cedis. It wasn't, you see, 20,000 cedis in 2022, 2022, before the economy of Ghana got to this level. He just needed 30,000 to buy Uber car. Now it's about 60, 70,000. But 30,000 could buy a car for Uber business. But when he didn't get the money from me, of course, I didn't give him intentionally. He borrowed money from the company and changed the room. Of course, his room became nicer than mine. Okay, but I was not moved. Okay, so giving is good, but I think that because unbelievers can also succeed without giving to the work of God and giving to people, we should give more. But the moment we give, we should be alert for the opportunities the Lord is opening to us. Okay, we should be ready that, okay, God, I mean, there was a church program last time, I gave this money. What if the opportunity you are bringing my way? And be prepared to take advantage of the opportunity to receive the benefits of your giving. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Mr.
Thanks.
Nkrumah. Thank you very much, Mr. Nkrumah, for taking time out of your busy schedule to share with us these wonderful insights. And unless we go from here to apply these, they will just remain knowledge. We don't want them to be just knowledge. And I would advise, especially the women that are connected here, that we really make use of this information. We want to be financially independent out of marriage, and in marriage, you should be able to do certain things without even asking your husband for money. So I would encourage all of us that whatever we have learned, our major takeaway from today, we take a step. I think the most important thing is to take a step towards maybe implementing them. You could speak further to people. And Mr. Nkrumah is an advisor, a business advisor, right? He does have a company that advises people concerning where to invest. If you think you don't have enough money and you need his services, he's available for you to talk to him, and he's going to guide you. He's going to guide you on a certain way on how to do things. Thank you very much, Mr. Nkrumah, for joining us today, and to all those that are connected with us today. Thank you for making time to join the Purposeful Living Conversations. And like I said before, the Purposeful Living Conversations is an initiative of the Friends of Purpose in Christ, and which is a global network of friends that seeks to improve the spiritual health, mental, and the career well-being of individuals. So do make time with us again next week from 7 o'clock p.m. to 8 o'clock p.m. We are sorry that today we went a bit like the time took more than we actually planned for, which is because the conversation was really interesting. And those insights were just flowing in and we didn't want to stop it. So thank you very much and see you again next week.
Thank you. Bye-bye.